Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final installment of Anna Raftery's Tap Trip Report, where we're going to be talking about her venture to Mid-Americon 2. In case this is the first one of these you're watching or experiencing, I am John, and this is Anna.
Hello, I am Anna, and that is John.
Yay! So, Mid-Americon 2 was the Worldcon that you went to, but also arguably the inspiration for you running for TAF the year you did, owing to the guest.
Yes, 100%. Yes. Yeah, I can't remember whether we've spoken about this probably in the first one of these. We talked about why I decided to run for TAF. And a couple of years before, you and Claire Briley had already approached me and said, we think you should run for TAF. And I was like, life. And then Tamora Pierce, who is one of my favourite authors and truly inspirational, all thanks to our amazing school librarian, Mrs. High. Call out to Mrs. High. Thank you, Emily Raftery. January. Whoops. So Tamora Pierce was one of my favourite authors and a very kind of inspirational author, and was one of the guests of honour at Mid-Americon. And so at LonCon, we kind of had another conversation and thought this was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Which it really was. It was amazing. So yes, that was one of the main reasons that I decided to run in the first place.
Makes a lot of sense. And you, I think, were in Kansas for that was the largest stretch you had anywhere in one go, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the largest stretch. I mean, obviously it's partly because the actual convention is 5 days, and I arrived just before and stayed till just after, so it ends up being 7 days in one place essentially. So yeah, it is. I was going to say it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it's kind of a sprint as well. It's intense.
Yes.
Having doing that much at a Worldcon.
Yeah, I sympathise.
I appreciate that. Yep.
Yeah, but it wasn't your. So you'd obviously been to LearnCon and ChiCon.
Yes.
And Glasgow.
Yes, in 2004.
2004? No, 2005.
2005. Yes, you're
right. And so this is your fourth Worldcon, I think.
This would be my fourth Worldcon, but it would. So at Glasgow, I was I had no involvement in program. I wasn't on any program at that stage. I was primarily in the Filk community, and I think hadn't really maybe been to one EasterCon or something like that. So hadn't kind of joined the wider EasterCon traditional SFF community, as it were. So that was very much a different experience. Then ChiCon, again, I don't think I was on any program, and while I did know more people and I went with friends, and some of them were on program, but again, it's a very different experience to this. And then LonCon, mostly running program instead of being on, and I honestly can't remember. LonCon is an interesting blur. So going in this way was a extremely different experience of a Worldcon. Yeah, I think I was quite lucky in some ways because it was intense and was kind of overwhelming at times, but because it was also the year, it must have been Dublin that they had started doing promotion for.
Yes.
If promotion is the right word. So actually there were quite a lot of kind of European, and also Helsinki was coming up. And so there were a lot of European fans that I knew who were there. And obviously, because I decided to do the Worldcon at the end of the trip, all the amazing people I met on the trip, quite a lot of them were there. So I kind of had a lot of people that I could connect with if I needed to do that. So that I think that was a really nice experience.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure whether this, I've not done any research to see whether this is an official statistic, but I imagine that most people do choose to have their kind of big target convention at the end, because it does mean that the people you've met will be at the convention and you can kind of have that community in place when you arrive, which is super useful.
Definitely. So I think I also assume that that's the situation, but having kind of some people I'd known for many years there as well, so some of the UK people and stuff was also nice, and Liz Batty also came over and kind of shared my room and was able to be my emotional support fan for the weekend. I think that was her official role, was to keep me sane, which was did a very good job.
Yeah. Did you? So I assume that the convention kind of comped your membership and your hotel room and all of that.
Yeah.
Did you? Was it as grand as your hotel room in Las Vegas, or was it?
I have never stayed in a place as grand. My flat is not as grand as that suite in Las Vegas.
It's a hell of a suite.
I spent one night in. No, it was just a nice hotel room. It was fine. It wasn't anything fancy. Yeah. And I kind of wouldn't necessarily. I would think I'd probably. I was going to say feel uncomfortable. That's a lie. I think I would totally love to have an amazing suite that was comped at a convention. But I think there's also the element of like, that's not really what I want them spending money on. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So do you get into Kansas City, I think, the day before the Worldcon starts, because there's a Facebook status asking if anyone's around yet. And Jerry, who is in the chat as we record this, was there already, and I think Emma England was around and people like that. What did you do the night before? Was it kind of a quiet night in, or did you manage to find anyone? Because it will not surprise you to learn that the substantive Facebook statuses are pretty much before and after Worldcon. During, it's photos, and there's not a lot of time to write, which I think is legit. But yeah. So what did you get up to that first night?
The first night, I believe I registered on that day to get it out of the way. So you don't need to worry about it. Because I think I also had some program on the first day, I'm pretty sure. I actually have I don't know, I'm checking. I did have program on the first day. I had my thing here.
Awesome.
And so I wanted to get that done. I believe, so I know Liz got in that night, and like I said, she was sharing the room. I think I kind of had a bit of a rest, and then did end up meeting up with people. I'm pretty sure I ended up mostly just connecting with people that I knew, as I mentioned earlier. I'm pretty sure I ended up having dinner with Emma England and Esther and James Bacon, kind of in some ways. I was going to say the usual suspects. That doesn't necessarily make sense, but people that I already knew and was friends with. So Yeah, and we had barbecue because it's Kansas City, and I think basically that's all we ate.
I mean, that is fair.
That is fair,
fair.
exactly. But yeah, I think the first night was mostly like eating, and then otherwise having a pretty chill night. We didn't end up staying up late, going out anywhere, or going to parties or whatever. I mean, maybe me and Liz ended up talking late, which is entirely likely, but I think we're probably both a little bit knackered and prepared for the
Yeah.
huge event about to happen.
The no, and like because when Liz kind of arrives, you must have so much to talk to her about because you've got like
Yeah.
this whole trip.
Mhm.
So you must have been over the moon to be able to start like deconstructing and talking to people from back home about it all.
Yeah, it was really nice actually, to beyond even all those other people. I think getting the opportunity to spend time specifically with Liz, because we kind of have been friends for many years, and it's not just a kind of convention friend. It's that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Who I love all my convention friends, but there is a slightly different thing sometimes. But yeah, so that was really nice actually. I think also a little bit like, do you remember? Well, I suppose Seattle, it must have been, having that moment to kind of touch base with Shauna Maguire, who again is someone I've known for many years and have that kind of friendship with, and it means that you. It's a slightly different thing. You don't need to be on, as it were.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was really nice. And actually, there were some of the times where it was a little bit stressful or overwhelming at the convention. Having Liz there did really help, just make it feel a little bit less less overwhelming,
Less everything.
less everything.
So yeah, so what was your first panel item? Like what kind of program were you on as a program participant?
I was on quite a lot of program. I have my program here, and I have to admit there are a couple of the program items I'm like, absolutely no memory how that went. But we'll see. So my very first item was finding fan funds, which there's an element, it was kind of that slightly obligatory fan fund panel that we have both been on many times.
Yup.
It was interesting. We had someone who is involved in the Japanese fan fund.
Oh, okay. That is really cool.
Which was really cool and very interesting. The focus was slightly more on how do I find out more, how do I get involved in it, which was cool. I halfway through the panel, Leanne ran in and gave me a tiara. So I will put on my tiara now.
Hey, that's what's been missing. I've been like, there's something missing about this whole thing, and
exactly,
it's
tiaras.
Me in a tiara. Yeah, exactly.
Where's yours?
That is beautiful. I now desperately want one. Sarah, Sarah or Sarah? I'll say it both ways and then edit. Sarah Felix has been making lovely tiaras and posting pictures of them on her Instagram.
Ooh,
and she did an R2D2 one and a Tiki one. And I am like, I want one so badly. My hair's long enough now, I think I could pull it off. So
yeah, definitely.
One day.
I mean, I have short hair right now. So.
Well, you could pull off a tiara at any like time of day, Anna. Like no one ever doubted.
I mean, this is true. So yeah, that was my first item. And I seem to remember it went well. It was actually relatively well attended. Again, it's one of those items which is either there's two people in the audience who don't know what fan funds are, and everyone else knows exactly what's going on. But actually, I think we had a bit more variety at that one, which was quite nice. But yeah, I seem to remember it went very well.
Excellent. Who were your co-panelists? Someone from Japan, but
I was like, damn. This is the problem. The program I have, I don't have who my co-panelists are, which is really,
okay.
That's the one that I found in my email. Let's cut this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's also really bad because, like, even later on, I'm like, they were interesting people. I don't know who they are. Actually, at least one of them, it's good I don't know because, yeah. So yes, that was my first one. On the first day, I only had one on the first day, and I think that was mostly just seeing people running around. I'm pretty sure I kind of popped in on the Filk program, popped in on other program. I don't think I actually went to much program myself, because there's lots of things like Hugo prep as well that kind of goes on in the background, or I also sat at the Dublin table quite a lot just to help out, and so I think there is only a couple of items that I specifically made sure to go to, and pretty much all of the more obvious items, unless I was actually on a panel or something like that. So yes, I think the other thing that was also happening a lot at the time was it was that summer where everyone was playing Pokemon Go.
Yes, yeah.
So I just remember every now and then there would just be like a swarm of people run outside because there was like Taurus, which is something you can't get in Europe. It's like North America only. And so like there were a couple of times where people just ran outside and were like, we need to go get this thing. So there was lots of like little things like that which were quite funny.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I have found out that I can get the Pocket program off the Mid-American 2 website if I use the Wayback
That's really
Machine.
smart.
So I can tell you that your co-panelists were Guy Lillian, Alan Stewart, Joe Ciclari, Stephen Boucher, don't know. Sorry, Stephen, if you're listening, and Claire McDonald Sims.
Who was so Claire McDonald Sims was the Guff candidate for that year.
Okay.
So me and Claire actually ended up spending quite a lot of time, which was time together, which was nice. Because I think she didn't know as many. Obviously, there wasn't like a whole extra random contingent from Australasia there as there were a whole extra random contingent of Europeans. So we ended up kind of spending a lot of time together because I ended up knowing all these extra people.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Me and Dave Cake are friends as a result of having both been the delegate in the same year from
it's kind of a nice like feeling. Nobody else quite understands how weird it is, especially that year, so it's really nice. Duff, not Guff, you're right. Sorry, Claire was Duff, not Guff. Down under, not going over.
And apparently Stephen Boucher. Although Jerry Sullivan says, as in take a bow, not use one to shoot an arrow. Oh, right. Yeah, no, I get it now. Cool.
Boucher, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yes, sorry. Right. That's so, okay. And I also see from the Pocket program that you did a variety of filking as part of your program participant.
Yes. So I hosted the open mic, which basically
with Kathy McManaman. It says
Kathy McManaman.
Kathy McManaman.
Kathy Marr? I thought it was.
Maybe.
Kathy McManaman. Okay.
It might be that she goes by a different name more colloquially.
Maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, basically it was just like introducing people. So that was very chill. I just go up and go,
Yay.
and this person's next. You were great. And this person's next. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fine. It was nice. I ended up not doing, like I said, much filking unless I did actually. If we don't want to necessarily go in the same order, the other thing I did is actually have my own concert, but that was on Saturday.
Ooh, that must have been very like exciting and very nerve-wracking.
It was. It's the only time I've ever done a solo concert.
How did it go?
It went really well. I think I made everyone cry at the end because I sang Parting Glass because of Dad. I made myself cry as well. But yeah, it went well. I did a couple of covers. I did a couple of my own songs. It was only half an hour, so it's about 6 songs or so. But it was really nice. And actually, because while I did know people in the audience, it was not like my home con, if that makes sense. So it's like, I don't care if they like me, I'll just do what I want to do. And there wasn't as much pressure.
Yeah.
Whereas I think here, I'm going to like my home con, going to the UK FiltCon, doing my own thing, I would feel way more pressure and feel a lot less confident because it's like, it's over there. If worse goes to worse, I'll never see these people again, which is really harsh, but...
No, there is a reason I've never given one of my science outreach talks at an EasterCon, and it is exactly this. I could give them to people I don't know. Giving them to people I know would not be a thing.
Exactly. So yeah, but it did go really well. I did cry at the end, but I also made half the audience cry, so I'm pretty sure that means it was successful.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. And
played the ukulele. And...
Having just said I completely understand why you haven't done one at a UK con, I really want to see you do one at a UK con now. So that's like a super conflicting thing.
Yeah, maybe at some point if I start playing the ukulele again more actively, I'll try and do something.
That would be really cool.
But yeah, shall we? I'm going to be a bit rude and skip over one of the next items in the program is the new comics you should read. And being that this was 2016, I literally have no memory of what the new comics that everyone should read were. I did make sure to like look into lots of stuff and read lots of stuff, but I can't remember what was new then and what I was recommending, so it's not very helpful.
I'm pretty sure I was on a very similar panel at Reno Renovation. And I remember that it was a good panel, and I remember that there were children in the audience. I have no recollection what the new comics were in 2011.
Exactly.
Was Dennis the Menace new then? I don't know.
Probably. But yeah, I mean, I seem to remember it's good. It was one of those panels where afterwards people came up to me and were like, I think that was one of the things that I really enjoy after certain panels, where afterwards you kind of get slightly swarmed. Not always. Sometimes it's like, oh my god, I need to go eat, leave me alone. But actually that kind of swarm of like, that was so interesting, I have all these questions, is a really lovely feeling. And that was one of those panels where I had quite a bit of that. The next panel, if you don't mind going forward, this was probably my most memorable panel, most memorable item that I was on other than Hugo related things. So the next one I was on was the Why a Long Time Ago, which was about Star Wars. And I was on this panel with 3 old white dudes. That's why
all of whom in the program are listed with the title Mr., just in case you like, you know.
Seriously. Yeah. You don't need to go into who they were. But after I remember really vividly at one point later in the convention complaining about this panel to Esther, and she was like, I literally put you on that because I knew that you would be able to deal with these old white dudes. So yeah, it ended up being the most memorable panel because it very much was having to manage that, and there were lots of kind of opening about like why you love Star Wars and how you're going to I think we've talked about fanish things and like why you got into it. And I remember as part of, because somebody else had mentioned comic books or something, I mentioned as part of my opening like going to comic shops as a child, and my dad taking me, and that kind of thing. And there was this whole thing was like, huh, you're a girl going to a comic shop, and I was like, yes, I went to a comic shop that was actually owned by a woman. It was very welcoming to me, and I'm really thankful for that experience. And because I was a lot younger than these people, there was that thing of that moment when you see the ship come over the horizon, and the first time you watch Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, I still had that experience. Like, just because I didn't see it in the cinema when it came out doesn't mean that I didn't have that experience. So there are lots of like weird little things like that. So the actual panel was supposed to be about why the whole saga is a long time ago in a universe far, far away. Even though it's like this science fictional thing, it's still the past, not the future. And so I was kind of hoping it would be very interesting. I talk about kind of how it's a representation of the knights, and they use lightsabers. They're literally using like sabers and swords, and it's about that whole honor and chivalry and da 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 da. That didn't really end up being what the conversation, like we touched on that.
So
it ended, the other, sorry, one of the other things that kind of was complained about was all the edits and the later changes and things like that, which I can understand why people feel like that. But for me, I'm also like, some of those aren't bad things, and it, like when the world develops, there are things that need to happen. And one of the specific phrases that somebody used was, I really hated that they added that girly scream when Luke got his hand chopped off. And I said, so how would you scream if you got your hand chopped off? And why does a scream have to be girly? And well, surprisingly, okay, yeah, they had no fucking answer for that. So unfortunately, it was very much a management of misogyny of that panel, and including some of the conversations. Sorry, keep going with your question.
Well, I just wanted to say, like, so was it that the problem with Star Wars panels at conventions, I would argue, is that very often you get someone who can't actually moderate the panel to answer the fucking question, because I don't want to see an hour of four crusty white dudes talking about why the like remastered editions are bad. I want to talk about the plot and the themes and the characters, and like I've seen panels that do that really well, and I've seen panels that are like, it's about Star Wars, so we're just going to talk randomly about Star Wars with no direction. Yeah. It sounds very much like it was the latter, which I have very little patience for.
I can't remember. It might be that I was actually the moderator.
No, you weren't. It was one of the unnamed men.
Good. I was like, was I? Because I'm pretty sure I felt like I had to moderate that. Yeah, and we had some really great questions. There were a couple of questions from the audience. There was this younger African American girl, well, woman. She was like in her 20s. I'm like, a little kid. I'm doing the exact same thing that every single fan has done to us the last 15 years. But anyway, and still, in fact, does. Yeah, so she asked, I can't actually remember what the question was, but it was something about like discovering it and that kind of, that women being represented in Star Wars, because there actually are not that very many women, but the women that are in there are actually very interesting and complex. And so there was that question of that. And again, because it was a long time ago, my answer was talking about how actually it plays with that damsel in distress trope quite interestingly, because it's like, we have to come and save you from the castle, but she was like, who the fuck are you guys? You know, you're too short to be a stormtrooper. And it's a very much, in the end, like, there are moments where she's saving the men, and that's a very interesting idea of playing with that, even though it's a long time ago. But again, I'm pretty sure one of the guys talked about her in a bikini, and I'm like, but although again, that's actually a very interesting scene, with the fact where she takes back her kind of thing and like strangle him and da 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 da. But that wasn't what the conversation was.
No.
And so yeah, I think that was a really interesting panel, and I basically felt like I had to moderate it. And I'm possibly, again, there was that element of, I'm not going to see these people again, where I definitely felt confident enough to call them out. I think
Good.
I was diplomatic, but it was definitely not what the panel could have been. But specifically, I remember afterwards, the young woman who asked that question, I ran into walking around the convention centre, and she said, thank you so much for being on that panel. Everything you said was really interesting, and also thank you for standing up for yourself and for like people like us, and like, it made it worth it being that panel, and made me feel good for being a Star Wars fan, which was amazing. And that's another reason why it's the most memorable, instead of just being it was a really shitty experience. It was also, I'm glad that people in the audience found it valuable that I was there. So that felt really nice.
So I am aware that my bias is to continue talking about Star Wars.
I know, we should move on. I'm trying to be aware of time. Should we? I've talked about the thing.
Your next panel was on cartoons for adults, which isn't like, it's watching cartoons aimed at kids, but as an adult.
I was actually going to say that the name is bad because it was because
you've got stuff like Rick and Morty and South Park,
adults.
which exactly. So the blurb mentions Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Gravity Falls. And I can imagine that you had a great time on that panel. So do you have
I did. That panel was great. It was really, it was also really great because the 5 minutes before the panel started, everyone on the panel was really quickly checking where we were up to on Steven Universe to make sure we're not spoiled, and at what point we should do the cutoff for spoilers, because also the way it was packaged and shown was slightly different. So season 1 in a lot of places is the first 52 episodes, but season 1 in some places is only the first 25, or 26 episodes. So we're like, okay, which part, at what point do we stop? So I think we spent about half the panel mostly talking about Steven Universe, and the rest of the time we did talk about Adventure Zone and Gravity Falls, and that kind of representation. And that one was a really fun panel, and everyone on the panel was really enthusiastic and knowledgeable, and there were, I think it was interesting because we did check in the audience how many people had not seen any of these shows, and seeing there were only a couple of people who hadn't seen anything, so we're like, okay, look, we are going to spoil things, but we will stop at this point. And if anyone has watched Steven Universe, we stopped at the end of the first 52 episodes, so essentially at the answer, like when we first have the discovery about Garnet, we didn't disclose what that discovery is. That was basically, that was the point where it was like, we're not going to make that spoiler, but everything up until that point. So yeah, and also the other lovely thing was we ended the panel by singing "We Are the Crystal Gems."
Me and Hispania did that while really drunk at Galley one year.
Oh,
And now like we sing it to each other when we're drunk. It's great.
it's so good.
Yeah.
So,
No, that sounds wonderful and affirming. There's a couple of other panels you're on. So you're on a panel about representation in comic books, which sounds really interesting. And then you're on a panel about Jessica Jones, which literally the brief is just we discussed Jessica Jones. So
it was
how did you
just
find
after
those
the
two?
It basically was just after the first season of Jessica Jones, and so and I think both of them ended up being slightly no, I have no idea what I was going to say. But similar, actually, I suppose is what you could say. But again, those I don't have any really, really vivid memories of those, except that they both went well. For the Jessica Jones one, I had the WW JJD, What Would Jessica Jones Do? Ribbons, and so I gave those out afterwards. And the representation in comic books, again, I can't really remember specifics that we spoke about that weren't in there. Are the cats doing something good?
No, I was looking because I'm sure I've got one of your WWJJD ribbons, but
You probably do it somewhere.
On someone else's lanyard because I can't see one on mine. But yeah.
Okay. So should we do last 10 minutes on Hugo's?
Well, I was going to very quickly ask you because the last program item you were on was obviously the fan funds auction. So I was just going to. I found fan funds auctions were quite different at Worldcon to EastCons. How did you find it? Did you enjoy it?
The kind of, is it wench they call the whole it is a different experience. I'd vaguely experienced similar things at American Filk Cons, which has a more similar thing. So some of it I was kind of expecting, but yeah, I think there is a difference. Also, the amount of money spent is very different. The fact that there are items which from the beginning are going for really huge amounts of money was kind of quite surprising and interesting to get used to. I think actually one of the weird things is there was some, and I might be conflating it with another. I think one of the things that was interesting is the fact that some of the one of the fan funds that we were supporting was like they were really had to delegate which items were for which fan fund.
Yes.
Whereas, especially in the UK, we're like, we know that TAF gets more money because it's in some ways better known, but also there's a like weird Americana thing surrounding it. So especially in the UK, we're like, no, everything is equal because TAF knows that we want to support Guff, and so we want to make sure they get more money. It is a more expensive fan fund, so why not give them money? So we're very much like, absolutely no problem, split it. But some of the other people, there was that slightly odd element of the fact that it was very much like these items, if they're sold, are only for this convention. Oh yes, actually, it was even more, as Alison mentioned, I think it was even more prevalent at Helsinki, which ended up being a very, very weird thing. But
when I was on my TAF trip, I had an argument with the administrator of a fan fund who shall remain nameless. Because I was like, it's the end. So like, we just do the thing we do at British conventions where we just say, come up, pay us reasonable things. We split everything, like, it'll be good. They were like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. I don't have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a thing.
But yeah, that was a thing that I found very weird. And but yeah, I think those are the main things that I found different, is the sheer volume of money, the slightly extra added theatrics about some of it, and the fact that people are weirdly precious about where money goes to instead of being more generally supportive. And it works okay for them, so that's fine. Personally, I like the way that we do it in the UK. So
Yeah, I think that's fair.
yeah. That's a diplomatic answer.
For those listening afterwards, the undiplomatic answer was exclusive to the live show.
Yes.
Um,
Exclusive to the drinks afterwards.
exactly. So yeah, so the other, so I have one more tiny question, maybe like two or three. This one might be a slightly longer one than normal.
I was going to say I don't think we can get through, but that's okay. I'm sure people.
So in your first.
Also, thank you, Alison, for again hosting this and supporting us. Is very great. We forgot to do it at the top, so we'll do it now.
Don't tell anyone, but I was going to give her a producer credit.
Oh yeah.
Final product.
And like in the thank yous too, definitely going to be on there. Yeah.
So your first Facebook status from Mid-Americon 2 after it started is, I'm going to read it verbatim, and then I'm just going to look at you quizzically. Anna Raftery, 18th of August, 2016. Day 2 of MAC2. Sat through a few hours of business meeting, so treating myself with a Tomorrow Peers panel. Why did you go to the business meeting, Anna?
Because I know annoying people who have opinion. I know Kate Seacole. Do you know Kate Seacole? I know Kate. And she was like, you have to come to the business meeting for vote on this thing. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I don't like you that much. Like, you're great and it's fan, but bye.
Oh, glad I asked. Totally worth it.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I should, before we move on to Hugo, since that will end up being, I think, is probably the right place to stop, is a big thank you to Joey Shoji, who queued up for the Tomorrow Pierce Cafe Clutch for me, because I was in a panel and he queued up for me and signed so he could sign up for me to go to the Tomorrow Pierce Cafe Clutch. This is the only Cafe Clutch I've ever signed up for or ever done. And it was amazing when I arrived, because like arrive early and talk to the other people at the table. They were all like, "Oh my god, you're the girl who's like that friend queued," because he'd like talked. You're like queuing for however long until it opens, and they were like talking. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing this for my friend," and they were like, "That's so sweet." So yeah, that was an unbelievably sweet thing for him to do, and it was also just like I'm actually getting a bit emotional thinking about it. So it was a really wonderful Cafe Clash, although like I said, I have absolutely no frame of reference because I haven't done any other ones.
I've already done
but
one.
having that opportunity to talk to her and also talk to other fans of that kind of her work was really amazing. And it was also quite special to be able to tell her about so this whole like group of friends I have in the UK, and tell her how many people, like it's touched so many people in the UK, because at the time she didn't have and for a while before that she didn't have a publisher in the UK. So it was just like these were like really significant works for a lot of people here, and we really want you to get another contract here, which she does now, and that's amazing. But and she signed my wrist next to my lightning bolt tattoo.
Yeah.
and part of me is sad I didn't get that tattooed. That might have been a bit.
I would have been very tempted to. But yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, so that was truly amazing, and such a lovely thing that Joey did for me, that he was willing to queue up for at least half an hour, if not more, just to sign me up. Yeah, it was really good.
So, how many Tamora Pierce panels did you go to other than the Cafe Clutch? Did you manage to get to a bunch?
Not many. I think I only got to one or two.
Okay.
That I didn't get to her interview. But I think because I was either on another panel or Hugo stuff. But I did get to at least one or two other panels. And it was very good. She's very interesting. She's super cool and feminist and doesn't give a fuck. So pretty awesome.
Yay. And then obviously, like, meeting Tamora Pierce has to be a highlight of the Worldcon, but I suspect the other highlight of the Worldcon is presenting a Hugo Award. Yes,
which then is like a whole palaver, because there's like the what's the word, rehearsal beforehand as well, where again you're just like sitting around for ages until you go up. But yeah, presenting Hugo was really amazing experience. I'm quite surprised at how. So I had the amazing, ridiculous, voluptuously cleavagey dress that I'd gotten with Jack. So that was very cool. But I was really nervous before going up, and me and Claire McDonaldson were both quite nervous. But I think in some ways, because she was like really, really terrified, I felt a little bit more calm, because there's that weird like I'll protect you almost thing. But it was also the year of the puppies. And so they kind of explained, you go up and we presented 2 awards, and you, like, somebody says the thing, somebody opens the envelope, and then after the person comes up and they get handed the thing, and then they do their speech, we step to the side, we step back up, it repeats, and then when they walk off, the second person walks off, we walk off as well. So that's fine. Did the whole, it's the second year, so it's the big year of no awards, as Jerry says, which is what I was getting to. So they kind of explained what to do. So we go up. So one of the, we go up, and I go up first, and I introduce myself. Oh no, what happened is they go up first, and somebody was doing the announcements and mispronounced my surname.
Fortunately, the Hugos have never had a problem with that since, so that's good.
Isn't it terrible when someone? But yeah, so they said Rafferty instead of Raftery. So or maybe even weirder than that. It was like really wrong. So I go up and say, "Hello, I'm Anna Raftery," and I get a big laugh. Excellent. Which is great, and like an applause. And then Claire goes up and introduces herself, and there is an applause because she just like, "Hello, I'm Claire McDonaldson, the Guff delegate," and I'm like, "Well, clap."
Wow, you've really reached the point of your trip where you're just like telling people how it is.
So yeah, literally I went up and I was like, I'm Anna Raftery, I'm the TAF delegate, and there was a laugh and a clap. Claire introduced herself and I was like, well, clap. And then again we got another clap and another laugh, which I think was really good. But then what happened is we do the first of our 2 things, our 2 what's it called, our awards at presenting, and it's no award. And we were not told what to do if that was the case. And I mean, the thing is, they know. Like, I was going to say, it's not their fault, but actually, no, it's their fault. They literally put the envelope thing in the envelope. They could have prepared us for that. So we had no idea what to do. So we're standing there, like, really awkwardly. And it's just like, though that was kind of a bit painful. And then, so then the second one, it was given to someone, so that's fine. But it was just like those kind of awkward moment, especially because I introduced the award and then Claire was the one who read the no award. So she felt really embarrassed, and neither of us knew what to do. So it was just a really awkward situation. And again, I think the Hugo organisers, which I think Will was
Will Frank.
Will Frank was the Hugo minister that year, so he should have told us, dude. Come on. Oh well, but
well, like, because I understand not telling you if no award's going to win, but like if you know that no award is going to win at least one category, then like
tell every
prepare
single
people.
person if no award, it says no award, this is what we want you to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Deputy admin. Will was deputy admin. So it wasn't all his fault. It was only deputy his fault.
It's the official position of the Transatlantic Fan Fund that it was all Will's fault. So
no. So yeah, that's fine. He was actually really great because the other thing that was obviously the year that my dad died, and so he was like one of the first things they did. I kind of pulled him aside and was like, so obviously my dad's going to be in the memorial.
Yeah,
exactly. Is that before or after we're presenting? But we were presenting the fan awards, which were at the beginning, so it was after. And he was like, don't worry, it is after. He is in there. I heard some really lovely things about him, so that was really nice. So I guess we can forgive him. So yeah, it was a very weird roller coaster of a few hours because it was that weird high of making a huge audience laugh, weird awkwardness of having no award, and then going back to my seat, and then after a few hours, however long, it was the that coming of the memoriam, and this was very good at being absorbent while I basically lost it into her shoulder for
that's 100% fair.
Yeah, that was oh well, it was what it was. It was tough, but okay.
I can imagine.
Cathartic in some ways. So yeah, and then we had the then we got to go to the parties.
Yes. So you went to the Hugo Losers party, presumably.
Yes. Yeah. Well, first we went to the official party. This was before.
because this is in the bad times.
This is in the bad times. This is when Grim would throw his own party separately, and it was this weird, like, clandestine thing where we spent 3 days trying to get tickets to it. Yeah, exactly. Which we did, but it was this very weird, like, it was like, so-and-so is that person's date, and so-and-so is that person's date. So then we can get, like, we needed to get, so I managed to get a ticket, and then this was obviously my date. But it was literally like trying to find out who you could get a ticket from. It was very weird. But yeah, so we went to the official party, which I think must have been hosted by Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember getting a cute Moomin mug.
It was.
And
It's always hosted by the next WorldCon. The official.
would
party.
it have been Helsinki then?
Yeah.
Was Helsinki? Oh gosh.
Yeah. Because I got a Con Zealand passport cover because they were like, you're going to have to travel to come to New Zealand, and then 2020 was like, hold my beer. So.
It is way more complicated. So we I went to that, we got the Moomin mug, but it was also just like in a hotel suite with a few snacks and not very many people there. And it was the year of the sad puppies, and so it just was a bit sad and a bit painful. There was this poor guy. I feel really bad. I can't actually remember who it is. Liz might remember. There was this one poor guy who was I'm getting to the astronaut. Anyway, sorry, I shouldn't read comments when I'm talking.
No, and people shouldn't post comments about things I haven't asked questions about yet, because I can't edit this video afterwards, so it ruins the flow. But exactly. Yes, there was an astronaut.
First, there was okay, let's talk. Yeah, there was a poor guy who got nominated and went, even though he was a puppy nomination, and it was just we felt that sad for him.
Yeah.
But there we go. But there was also an astronaut.
There was an astronaut. Yes, there is a picture of you with the astronauts.
With
Jeanette
Dr. Jeanette Epps, and it was super cool, and she was really lovely, and she was like a science fiction nerd. Was that the year that The Martian won? Was that why they were there? No, she was just there, I think. There was a year where Andy Ware, didn't they have where he...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can look it up while you
it
tell
doesn't
the story.
matter. That's a separate thing. But yes, so we talked about it might have won Best Dramatic Presentation.
It did.
2015. Yeah.
I shouldn't have looked it up. We had people in the chat doing it for us.
Exactly. So yes, Martian won Best Dramatic Presentation. And they had the astronauts accepted the award. And so it was interesting talking to her about that specifically, of this whole thing of like astronauts watch this film and like, yeah, this makes sense. And there's that wonderful, like, obviously you realize and you understand that astronauts are scientists and nerds most of the time, because one of the ways that you like, I want to go to space, is because you watch and read science fiction. So, you know, she was a big Doctor Who fan, which I think she talked about because we're, you know, English.
Yes.
But still, that's like, oh, of course you are. Of course you're a science fiction fan. Of course you love Doctor Who. That makes complete sense. But yeah, so that was very cool. The nice thing at the slightly odd party. But then we got to go to the super cool, elitist, problematic, but it was still fun party. Yeah, exactly. It was at a like old theatre which had turned into a bar or club.
Oh, so nice. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was very cool looking. But there was like these like balcony things and you could look over, and it was all very dramatic, and there were lots of drinks and cocktails, and I'm pretty sure they're all like Game of Thrones themed as well at that point. And stuff. So yeah, that ended up being a fun party with lots of booze in the hall and lots of like interesting food, and also it's near the end of the con, and so everyone's a bit like rowdy.
Yeah.
At that point.
I went to the Hugo Losers Party, the official one at Renovation, because I'd presented
Mhm.
to Hugo, and then I went to the ones at
Helsinki.
San Jose, Helsinki, and Dublin. And
Oh
it is
yeah. You've got to go to
difficult to
Dublin.
argue. Yes, yeah, I did. But it is very difficult to argue that George doesn't do a better job of it than the one I went to at Reno, which is the tricky thing.
I mean,
Um,
surprisingly,
yeah,
money means that you have a better party.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm really happy that it changed to be not being a kind of hard thing. Well, changed to not being a hard thing to get into. Maybe we shouldn't talk about Dublin's,
No, I mean, probably for the best, right?
but changed how it was so that actually everyone who was should be it. Anyway, yeah. I think that like I was lucky enough to go to the Helsinki one as well. So which was a very fun party in a different way. Weirdly, I can't really remember much after the first couple of hours
Shocking it is. Shocking.
the of that party, but it was a lot of fun.
Excellent.
What I seem to remember. I'm not sure if Liz has any clearer memories or not.
I have one more question about Worldcon, and it
Yes.
kind of segues from the losers party, which is how did you find the party scene and the social scene at Worldcon generally, like outside of the Hugo parties? Is it mostly an alcohol and sleep deprived blur?
Yeah, honestly, I can't really remember that many that we went to. I think there was a time where we were like going between floors and going between. There we go. The parties. Jerry says the parties were horrible at Mac 2. Like I honestly can't really remember that many.
Okay.
There is that thing of going to an American house party. Well, there's the like you need they're always checking your ID, which isn't
Okay.
something that you know we worry about here if we're having parties. But I think they did it in the similar style to how we had to do it at Luncon, if you remember. Like
Oh yes, I do
because
remember.
we
Yeah.
didn't have a central hotel, and the UK way it works is a bit different, so we wouldn't have really been able to do parties and suites. So it was in the convention centre and
In the fan village,
in
yeah.
the fan village, exactly. And so I believe that they kind of did a similar thing for whatever reason. I mean, I don't really know why that was their decision. Maybe they thought it went really well at Lantern. I mean, we did our best, but so yeah, that was it means that it was kind of fine, but more sitting around in groups of friends and chatting and having a few drinks rather than kind of doing that weird party crawl to like different rooms and different floors and that kind of thing. And again, I don't think it was super as much like alcohol, but again, I think there were some weird reasons around that. Again,
Okay.
because of age type things, I can't really remember. So
Okay, fair enough.
yeah, basically they weren't memorable. Is I think the problem. Other than that last one, but yeah. I know that we were going over, but I feel like there is one thing that I should also mention, especially because I set the precedent of how talking about food so much in previous episodes.
Yep.
So talking about the like amazing thing that I ate while we were there, obviously barbecue was fantastic. But on one of the last days, we went out to Jack Stack.
Jerry
Jack
mentioned
Stack.
that in the chat, yeah.
And It's slightly further away, so we like had to get a taxi there. And it was this huge group of people that we ended up going with and that we'd like become friends with. But because one of the things that is supposed to be like iconic and amazing is the carrot cake that they have there. And because it's America, like the serving was basically a small carrot cake, like a fucking carrot cake. And it was served hot with this like cream cheese frosting, almost like a custard on it. Yeah. And it was it was just like basically everyone was like, you have to go there for the carrot cake. And so that's kind of, we went there, we managed to get one of the last carrot cakes and it was amazing. And Liz didn't have it because she doesn't like carrot cake, but that was like the thing, that the specific kind of food pilgrimage that we ended up doing because everyone else was talking about it, but we couldn't eat anything else because like it took so long to get out there and organize this huge group of people that like they'd already eaten, and so we went and ate somewhere else. But I got some of this. And Liz has no memory of this carrot cake. I'm sure that it exists, and I'm sure that this is the thing. I like have such a good memory of this carrot cake that was like
so
almost mythological, that everyone was talking about, and we finally got to have some. And I just don't even know.
Because this is the second time you've mentioned carrot cake in your trip, and both times you've been like, I don't remember where it was, but I remember it was good.
I'm sure it was.
I just like that there's this like carrot cake mystery at the heart of your TAF trip.
I know. I'm sure that this exists. I don't know. Maybe I imagined it.
So we have some corrections from the Peanut Gallery, which is
I'm sure
firstly that Will Frank and Dave Mackay were the joint Hugo admins that year. But Jerry points out that it's actually the Hugo ceremony director's responsibility. So that would have been Randall Shepherd and Jessica Guggenheim. So it's them we have our official TAF disapproval of.
Yes.
And I am at this point like asking for questions from the horde in the chat. So like if anyone does have any questions for Anna, please feel free to pose them. But until we get some questions from the chat, like we have your Facebook statuses from arriving back in London. So how was it like going back to the UK at the end? Like was it a relief to see Hog and kind of get home, or were you really upset that you could stay out there longer, or how did you sleep for a week?
I think that I think I had to go back to work relatively quickly. So I would have come back or probably arrived on like the Tuesday, I guess. And I only had like a day or two before I had to. So by the end of the week, I had to kind of be back at work because I've already been away for 3 weeks. So, there's only so much time that you can take. But it, I remember being pretty exhausted. Really glad to see Andrew. I think that was also the thing is that at the beginning we were like calling more and probably FaceTiming or Skype or whatever. But as I get more busy, I'm less likely to do that, but also just because it's like the effort of it and you're already so tired of talking to people. So although we were like maybe texting and stuff, we weren't really talking very much. So it was actually really lovely to see him again and just sleep in my own bed and have some time alone without anyone else there. I think that was one of the big things, is just actually not having people around.
That's,
I
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that while I've always kind of said, "Oh, I'm an introvert," I'm probably very much that, both extroverted and introverted.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not as black and white as some people, for some people. But
Yeah.
I definitely am one of those people who need to recharge without people around me. So while I enjoy being social and I'm fine being friendly to new people and making a big audience of 1,000 people laugh and doing all that kind of stuff, public speaking, whatever, actually, when I need to recharge, I just need to be alone.
Yeah, no, that's 100%, 100% fair.
So yeah, and I think I also dyed my hair back to a normal colour.
Yes, the very last photo I have from your trip, which will be the very last photo in the finished package, is you with your natural coloured hair, looking disgruntled. I think that you're no longer on holiday, but probably a little bit relieved that you're back.
We can Photoshop the pimples, right?
Yep. I mean, I don't know. Alison can turn these around very quickly.
I'll be all right.
As anyone who's ever asked her for art for their TAF trip report will be able to testify. So we have some questions in the chat. So Liz asks, did you enjoy the Worldcon more because you were the TAF delegate?
I enjoyed it more than LondCon. That sounds bad. LondCon was very stressful, while for good reasons. So I did enjoy it more being a TAF delegate. I think that having a bit more of a balance between not actually running a program stream and not being on a million panels is I have discovered is my favorite way to enjoy a Worldcon. So Helsinki and Dublin, I kind of got the opportunity to do panels and do things, but I didn't have huge amounts of responsibility. And so but it was a really kind of exciting experience, and getting to have that kind of slightly behind the scenes and slightly feel a bit special was quite nice. I don't mind feeling special and people going, "Oh my god, you're the TAF delegate," and not really understanding why that's important, but other people seem to think important, so it's probably important.
Yep.
So that was quite nice, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. I don't know whether I would want to do it again, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
Yeah, but it was fun.
We have a question from Jerry, which is, did doing your trip before the Worldcon, so how many of the people you stayed with and met ended up going to Kansas City? Would you say it was most people, or kind of what?
I think probably not. It wasn't actually most people. I don't think a lot of the Las Vegas people were there. So maybe 70% of the people I stayed with and met were there. It was the one, I think one of the few room parties that did happen was run by the kind of Canadians, and they they brought me a bottle of the Ungava gin, which was a gin that I really enjoyed and I tried with them. So nice. That was cool. Got to see them again. I think it was it Jerry who took the photos for. Wait a minute. Yeah, so John O'Halloran. John took the photos for the
For the
like
Hugo Awards.
Hugo photos, yeah. So it was nice to see them, and again, there was that kind of like felt comfortable with that, which was really nice. Yeah, I think I got to touch base with most of the people, and that
That's
was
really
really nice. It was almost like that kind of reunion thing, because you do actually get to see people again. But yeah, I was just running around very busy most of the time, I
think. That is fair. And then there's one last question before from the audience.
yes.
There's one last question from the audience. Emily January asks, having been to half of the last decade's Worldcons, where would you
Whoa.
rank this one overall?
Wow, that's a thing. Have I? I guess I have, yeah. The last decade. So this one, LongCon,
Helsinki,
Dublin, ShyCon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think for personal experience, rather than like necessarily other things around whatever politics or program choices or whatever, I think this would probably be top two, maybe number one, but I think it would probably be top two. I really enjoyed Helsinki. I think that I just had a really fun time and saw a lot of, like, got to spend time with a lot of people I really love, and so I just have really pleasant memories of Helsinki.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah, I think that as if we did want to get not political, but technical and all that kind of stuff, I think that probably I would put LonCon above it, because I think there were some things that they did a lot better. But as a personal experience, the actual convention, there were some very stressful moments. And it was still really good. That sounds really negative about it. It was a good convention, even if I cried at the end. But I think that for a personal experience, it's probably one of the best I went to, just because it was so magical, I guess. It's such a unique experience. It's such a significant experience for me, of having done that and having had that opportunity to do such a ridiculous trip. It's just like complete, like, who would actually do all those different places and not actually spend that much time in each and do so many things, and then go to this convention and like meet Tamora Pierce and present a Hugo Award and beat down some misogynistic old fans and so yeah, I think it probably was the most unbelievable, and I'm trying to think of some more.
No, it's good. It's a good note to end on, I think.
Good.